Salve omnes, and welcome to this week's video tutorial, Campbell University, Fall 2023, Chapter 6. This is your friendly philosopher Latin teacher, Dr. Thomas. You will have a test next week, details to come, but it will be on chapters 4, 5, and 6. All right, let's take a look at the grammar topics in this chapter. We have sum and possum, which is the irregular form to be. So sum means I am, possum means I can or I am able to. And then we have what's called the complementary infinitive. We had the infinitive back in chapter 1. This is merely another instance of that. As always, you will want to read through the chapter. Again, if we were in a live classroom, we would do this together, take turns reading. And you will see that this chapter is not too difficult. I want to argue once again, or at least suggest in this format, that at this point, really what's crucial is you start getting comfortable with the fact that Latin is an inflected language and nouns and adjectives have declensions or endings. And then we've also been talking about different verb endings and tenses, the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense. And we need to be able to recognize those verb tense endings, in particular, osmos tisnit, bombe spot, bamos pate spont, and bo be boo, as we talked about last chapter. And then it's simply a matter of learning the vocabulary based on the chapter and the examples. Nevertheless, you will want to read through this chapter just to get more comfortable with the grammatical terminology. And again, I cannot stress enough, please do the self-tutorial exercises in the back of the book, for which you have the answers after you read through the chapter and before you tackle the sententia antiqui, which is the focus of these tutorials. All right, let's take a look here at the verb to be, which again, probably just going to have to be memorized. It's no different than English. If you were teaching somebody English and they were asking you about these forms of the verb to be, either in the future or the past, you'd probably say, well, you're just going to have to memorize it. So here we have I shall be, or I will be, you will be, he, it, there will be, we shall be, you will be, they will be, although it's still following our osmos tisnit. So osmos tisnit, OST, mus tisnit, mus tisnunt, but then we're going to have to be able to recognize the base form. You can see here there is a key vowel, I, if that helps you. So I will, eret, he will, erimus, we will, or we shall. So that might help you a little bit. Same thing here. We saw this in the past chapter, is we have the key vowel A, which is, in this case, I was, so that might help you. Past, think past, P-A-S-T. But ultimately, these are just going to have to be memorized. Once again, I'm using a Kindle version, hence the wonky characters here, but those, of course, are A's with macrons. So those need to be memorized. Same thing with possum, posse, potui. I am to be able, and I could. Irregular simply means that they're hard to predict and hence probably need to be memorized or practiced a lot, which in one sense is the opposite side of the coin. So take a look at these. These are pretty common. Sometimes these are called modal verbs if you study other languages. But we are still following our osmos tisnit. So sum ss mus tisnunt. And so that should be helpful in terms of being able to identify the person and number. So potest is third person singular. Est by itself, of course, means is. Sum, I am. S, you are. Est, he is, it is. Mus, we are. Tis, you all are. And then nunt, they are. So that should be helpful for that. So again, this chapter does not have a whole lot of new, at least deep grammatical concepts. So if you just study the examples and learn the vocab, I think this chapter is fairly straightforward. Let's see, let's take a look at the examples here. See, they talk about the complementary infinitive. Sometimes this is called the verbal complement in English. And what it does, it just completes the meaning of the sentence. So here we have amici nostri pot errant superare multa pericula. Our friends were able to overcome many dangers, so our friends were able. So the infinitive means to. So to overcome or could overcome. Same thing here, to remain. Remanere is our complementary infinitive. And to save or to conserve, conservare. So again, this is just as in English, without this verbal complement, the meaning of the sentence would be incomplete. And then, as you know, going back to chapter 1, the infinitive does not have verb endings, so no osmos tisnit, and simply follows the infinitive or second principal part of the verb, which is going to end in ARE for first conjugation, ERE for second conjugation, ERE without the macron for third, IRE for fourth, and then the so-called capio, facio, IO verbs of the fifth. All right, let's take a look at that. Again, read through that. On your test, you will have vocabulary matching. And of course, this vocabulary also is necessary to better understand and complete the examples in the book. So once again, if we were in a regular classroom, I definitely would practice this a little bit more. You have Quizlet, other things that you can use to make this a little bit more interactive. I will say that once again, that as your book points out, that the second letter here, or not second letter, but in Latin, it gives both the nominative singular and the genitive singular. 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 So if we look at our declension, you can see it's deus, but dei, because as we've said before, only the genitive singular will tell you more exactly what declension a noun belongs to. So that's sort of the listing here. So we have deus, dei. If we take, let's see if I can find here we go. So insidiae, insidiarum. So ae is actually in the plural, so pl. So we need the first declension genitive plural. And you can see here that is erum. And so hence how that vocab is indicated. So it is important when you're learning the vocab to learn the genitive singular. And it's going to help out and pay dividends as you continue in your Latin. Once again, if you go to Wheelock's website, they have audio files pronouncing these words. They're very phonetic. Latin doesn't present too many difficulties in terms of pronunciation. So definitely learn these words. One, because they're going to be on the test. Two, you're going to need to know them for the exercises. As you'll see, many of these words are in the examples. And then here are some other words as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the example, again, based on classical sources. So we have a number of examples by Cicero and also by the Roman historian Livy. So here we have Dionysius tum erat tyrannos Syracusanorum, and they give us a little bit of help here. Dionysius or Dionysius was a Greek name. Tum means then. Can also mean kind of at that time. Again, I have my Whitaker's words. So then or at that time. So maybe at that time might make more sense, but it is an adverb of time. So I'm just going to say at that time Dionysus was, I think is, let me go back to see what's, so erat is was. That's an irregular form of to be, which is listed in your book. So at that time, Dionysius was, and then what was he? He was a tyrant of the Syracusans. Here they have it, and so here it's reference to the people, not the place. So if we go to our endings here, you can see that is genitive plural. So that's where we're getting of the Syracusans, because genitive means of or possessive in Latin. So I put it all together. At the time, Dionysius was a tyrant. If you want to say a tyrant, that's fine too. Maybe a little better. Of the Syracusans. I want to capitalize Syracusans because it is a proper noun. All right, so that one's fairly straightforward. Once again, once we know our vocabulary, we may have to look up some words, the adverb, the past tense of the verb was, and other than that, I think the vocab. Don't forget, you do have a dictionary in the back of your book as well, but maybe Whitaker's Words makes it a little bit easier. All right, duo, number 2 here. So, optisne meam vitam fortunam que gustare. So they give us a little bit of help here. This one's a little bit trickier. Excuse me. The nay is often used with questions. So here you can see we have a question mark. Looking ahead to number 3, we also have a nay. We have a question mark. This is called the enclitic or the tachon. We don't have this in English, but if I just do that, you'll see what I mean here. It's let's see here. Do I have it here? No, this doesn't help us too much here, but it's used for yes/no questions. It's kind of a rhetorical, grammatical device. Again, we don't have it in English, but you'll see how to translate in a second. But just sort of keep in mind, it introduces questions that have a yes/no answer as their possibility. So optisne. So we go back to the verb here. So optisne is second person singular. How do we know that? Because there's our osmos tisnit. So if it ends in S, then it's second person singular you. If it ends in T, then it's third person singular he, she, it. If it's mus, then it'd be we, tis, you all, and nunt, they. Obviously, the first person singular sometimes has a different word, sometimes a, sometimes o, but it still follows that osmos tisnit. So if you're not sure, optisne, you're going to have to take time and look it up. And you're going to see optes is present, active, indicative, second person singular, just like we said. So again, I think that's one of the virtues of Latin, like in the sciences. You got to slow things down a little bit and actually look up the words, do a little bit of research. So we put all together, it means do you wish. But then in English, right away we expect maybe the complementary infinitive to come next. Here, gustare means to taste, and it's where we get words gustatore and disgust. So we put it together is that do you wish to taste? And I'm going to put that right there as a holding marker. Oops. Do you wish to taste? And then we'll taste, and then we got to go back to these words, which are in the accusative, because we have am, and that goes back to chapter 2, I believe. And we need to be able to recognize this as the accusative direct object. So these are the objects of taste that Cicero is referring to. And what is he saying here? My life and fortune. So let me put that here. Do you wish to taste my life and fortune? Now, what does that even mean? Well, it's a little bit abstract just with this sentence here, but remember, Cicero was Rome's greatest statesman, 106 to 43 BC, and this is likely a reference to the kind of work ethic and principled manner of thinking that he thought he represented as one of Rome's leading statesmen and perhaps the most famous representative of the Roman Senate. And so Cicero wrote a lot about living a virtuous, principled life, and so that seems to be what the sense of it is here. All right, the next one is possumus ne. ode in malis insidiis et magno exitio esse salvi. And then here, this one is probably the most complex one of these sentences here, and we got to take it word by word. So possimos ne is we. So we could say this is are we able, because possimos means it's one of our vocabulary elements in this chapter, as we saw just a moment ago. So it is possimos ne. Once again, if we're not sure, it is where we get words like possibility, but we can just look it up if we're not sure. So it's first person plural. So are we able, or can we would also be a more informal way to read that. So I'm going to say, are we able, O gods? So let me put that up here because this one's a little bit more complex. So are we able, O gods? And then here's where it gets a little bit trickier. Remember, part of the rationale behind the Wheelock's Latin is you have sort of these philosophical sayings, some of which seem a little bit abstract because they're taken from the context, and they're supposed to elicit thinking and conversation and reflection on their meaning as a kind of deepening of the rhetorical and philosophical meanings in the language. So the fact that it is a little bit abstract is actually part of its purpose to get you to think more deeply about the language and about its meaning for Romans and Latin. So, but then here it says, are we able, O gods? Now here in English, we would probably need the infinitives. That means to be. Now salvi is the fact that I say, can you explain why? So this is a perfect passive infinitive. We haven't had this grammar element. So there it is, perfect active. Here it's used as the indicative. So here it probably means it's probably being used as an adjective in this case. So it could mean, are we able to be well, unharmed, sound, alive, safe, or saved? So in this context, it's probably an adjective agreeing with mus. Because if we go back to our declension chart, that second declension nominative plural is I. And so remember, adjectives also have the same declensions as the nouns. So salvi is actually referring back to the nominative plural subject, which is, in this case, mus. So this one's a little bit more complex grammatically. So are we able to be safe? So esse salvi means to be safe. So are we able, gods, to be safe? But then we need to fill out, this one's a little bit, this is the ablative of separation. This one, again, as I've said several times, a little bit more complex. Doesn't mean in. Prepositions in all languages have different sort of functions in terms of how we read and translate them. So we're going to translate this as from treacheries. Here, actually, we're going to have to look up these words. So from literally means from malicious treacheries. And let's see how this one, I'm going to look this one up. So yeah, and from great destruction. So this one, so we're going to go, remember Cicero's writing at the end of the Roman Republic, and there were many conspiracies and crimes and a lot of things going on. And so that's the sense that Cicero's language is expressing here. So put it all together, are we able to be safe from literally all the bad treachery and great crime? So to say from all the, I'm just going to say actually treachery and crime, just because, at least to my ears, if we give these adjectives, which make sense in Latin, it seems a little bit overly done in English. So insidiis is treachery. It's actually one of your vocabulary words. I think if we go back just to kind of put this in context here. So here it is right here. So it means ambush, plot, treachery. It's where we get the word insidious. So I'm just going to keep it like that. And so are we able, O gods, to be safe from all the treachery, and destruction. Okay, so I'm going to move on here to number 4. And again, just finishing up number 3, sometimes translation is not a one-to-one meaning, and so sometimes words just don't translate readily, and that's okay. That's part of understanding. All right, number 4, propter curam meam in perpetuo pericula non eritis. Propter means because or on account of. So on account of my care, you will not be in perpetual danger or in constant danger. So I'm going to say because of my care, you will not be in constant danger. What does that mean? Well, it was a dangerous time in ancient Rome. At the age of 13, Caesar, for example, entered Rome, entered a maelstrom, and there was, for all intents and purposes, a bounty put on his head at age 13 because of his family, who was rather distinguished in Roman history. Caesar had to leave Rome, and he came back through the pleas of his family and other powerful political people during that time. But even then, his life was not safe, and so Caesar really came of age during a time of great political instability. And Cicero is also sort of reflecting that you needed powerful allies, powerful friends, to survive. Well, then as now, but especially then. Otherwise, you were likely to lose your head, which Cicero and Caesar ultimately did. Cicero was beheaded. Of course, we all know how Caesar died. So because of my care, so propter is always followed by the accusative. So here we have am. Why? Because first declension accusative singular is am. So because of my care, here's the eretis, so you all, you will not be, that's how we have to translate that. And then literally in perpetual danger. So pericula means danger, but probably in constant danger, for me, sounds a little bit better. So here we have in perpetuo periculo. So both those, of course, are in the second declension ablative singular because we're describing that state of affairs. Okay, moving on to number 5, we have propter again, because or on account of. Another preposition. Now, vita means life, vita, but vitia means vices or crimes. So on account of your vices, many blame you, and nothing now is able to delight you in your country. So let me put that up here and then try to explain that here. So because of your vices, nothing now is able to delight you in your country or fatherland. Did I get that right? It's kind of a longer sentence. So because of your vices, I think I left it out. Many blame you. And put that in here. So because of many blame you, and so because of your vices, so propter vitia tua, because of your vices, many blame you, multi te culpant, and nothing now, nunc is now, is able to delight you in your country. Now this is probably a reference to Catiline, who was a conspirator that Cicero revealed, or rather whose conspiracy Cicero revealed to the Roman Senate and hence to Romans. And so Catiline was sent into exile. We mentioned how Julius Caesar was sent into exile, so to speak, just a moment ago. And so again, things were very unstable during this time. And so this is probably a reference to that if you're conspiring against Rome, as Cicero sees it, then clearly you don't love your country. So if you don't love your country, then you don't take delight in it. And so it's probably best for you to leave, which he did. So let me try to explain that, make sure I got it. See, because of your vices, propter tua vitia, many, so multi. So here we look at our second declension nominative plural, so multi. But then multi blame, like culpable. So culpant is agreeing with third person singular, many blame you. And nothing now. So this one's a little bit tricky in the sense that you need to get the now as an adverb, is able to delight you in your country. So that last part, in your country, sounds a little bit abstract, but that you're, just because English prefers to say that you might say that because of your many vices, it is clear that you no longer love your country. But that's a kind of moralism that, quite frankly, the Romans just didn't have, because that idea of love is already mediated through Christian thought, which the Romans didn't have. And so even though that translation sounds better to our ears, that's just simply because of American morality is founded in part on Christian morality. And so we can use words like love, whereas Romans didn't have a sense of love, but rather a sense of duty and virtue. And we'll kind of leave it at that. Number 6, Fortuna punici belli secundi varia erat. So this is, we have a different author. Livia, of course, is one of Rome's famous historians. You may be familiar with the Punic Wars against Carthage and Hannibal. And here we have the fortune of the Second Punic War was varied. So in other words, it was a difficult struggle. So let me put that up here. So the fortune of the, type here, Second Punic War was varied. What does that mean? The fortune of the Second Punic War was, that's fine. That's what it says. I'm not going to worry about the grammar suggestion. So we go back here, is the fortune of the Second Punic War. So we need to recognize this is second declension genitive singular. So we said genitive means of. So of the Second Punic War. And then erat means was, but then varia, well, they give us right here, it says varied. So I'm just going to copy that word right here. So what does that mean? It was a long struggle. If you study it, which you would at a more advanced stage of Latin and Roman history, you would see that that took Rome many, many years to defeat Hannibal and Carthage, and that's sort of what Livy is recording here. All right, septem, patria Romanorum erat plena Graecorum librorum statuarum quae pulchrearum. So what do we have here? That the fatherland of the Romans was full of Greek books and of beautiful statues. So let me write that down here. So the fatherland of the Romans was full of Greek books and beautiful Greek statues. Let's see if I got that right here. So the fatherland of the Romans was full of Greek books and of beautiful Greek statues. Yeah. Now, what does it even mean? Well, once again, Cicero is writing during a time of constitutional crisis, of ongoing civil wars, and he's going back to an earlier day in terms of what made Rome great in terms of its republican virtues. And he's recalling the fact that in better times, in other words, in the fatherland of yesteryear, if you will, that Rome, one of the reasons Rome was more stable and great was it was full of Greek books, Greek wisdom, and also art. So the idea here is that wisdom and beauty, which the Greeks represented. If they are in plenty, then of course Cicero wants to argue that will contribute to political stability and flourishing. Let's take a look at the grammar in a little more detail. Again, that patria is always kind of challenging to translate, just because we say our country. Native land, home, native city, one's country. We're used to saying our country. That's another reason this is difficult to translate, but you could say the country of the Romans or the fatherland of the Romans was plena, means full, like plenty. And then we have genitive aurum, genitive aurum, genitive erum, and genitive erum. So this is a good one to get comfortable with the genitive. So we look here at second declension genitive plural. There's our aurum. But then we have first declension genitive plural. There's our erum, just because the noun that they are describing in this case is masculine, because book is masculine, or books, and statues, which end in A, are feminine, so we need those correct gender case endings. All right, so we've gone through 7 of these. These are, I think these are fairly straightforward, even though they provide, there are some issues of how to translate it, but definitely the grammar is on full display here, so you will have to, that's what I said, is that the grammar proper in this chapter, the verb to be and the complementary infinitive, is not that difficult because it just needs to be memorized as in English. But this is another opportunity to get better with these case endings, which in my experience is the big challenge in Latin 101 and even Latin 102. Okay, we got a few more here. Sine. Sine means, it can be, in this case, without, or it can also be the imperative. Let's see how it's being used here. Okay, it must be without in this case. So without, this is by Seneca, who was tutor of Nero, great Stoic and writer. So sine dicet diabus in caelo animos non potest sanos, essay. So without the gods and goddesses in heaven, the human mind, or it could be the soul, is not able to be well, literally sane. So here's a good one here. So without the gods and goddesses in heaven, the human mind is not able to be well. So let's put that right here. So sine means without the gods and goddesses in heaven, the human mind is not able to be well. Yeah, I was reading an article somewhat recently, and this author made the argument that Rome was not a spiritual society, but it was a religious society, and we see that in these words. Sine is without, but when we use sine as a preposition, it's followed with the ablative. So the reason we have dis in diabus is dis in this case is second declension ablative plural. Now the diabus for goddesses is a little bit irregular. That's why it has an irregular ending. But then in Kylo is also in the ablative because it's an adverb of location. So there's O. So in Kylo. But then we have our subject as animus, which is our, always in the nominative, of course, animus. Animus can also mean soul, but I think since Seneca's philosopher, we're going to go with mind. And then here's one of our grammar points in this chapter, is not able to be. Esse means to be. And then sanos, where we get the word sanity, in this case means well or healthy. Can have some other meanings, but the important thing is choose one: sound, healthy, sensible, sober, sane. I said well, which is not any of the words listed, but that's what I'm going with. All right, a couple more here. Another one by, not another one, but a quote by Publilius Syrus. And si animus infirmus est non poterit bonum fortunam tolerare. And that means that if the mind is weak, it will not endure good fortune. So let me write that down there. If the mind is weak, it will not endure good fortune. Don't forget, you will have to write a short essay on one of these sayings. What does it even mean? Well, perhaps it means that if somebody is depressed or somebody is an inveterate complainer, somebody's eyes are always downcast, even if good fortune comes their way, they won't be able to recognize it. So that seems to be perhaps one way to read it. So si means if, animus infirmus, again, infirmus, weak, not strong, is fairly straightforward. Here's one of our vocab, or rather our grammar elements in this chapter. It will not be able, but then here's our complementary infinitive. It's where we get the word tolerance, to tolerate or to endure. And then endure what? Bonum fortunam, because that's the direct object, first declension accusative singular, am, and so that is the object of the endurance. And the last one here, ubi leges valent, ibi populus liber potes valere. Where the laws are strong, there a people is able, there a free people is able to be well. So where the laws are strong, there a free people is able to be well. So where the laws are strong, there a free people is able to be well. Where the laws are strong, there a free people is able. Valere means to be well or to be strong. Strong, powerful, healthy. Again, I keep using well, but hopefully you agree that is a synonym or sensible translation of that. Okay, so an interesting one here. I do not love thee, Dr. Fell. Here we have Martial. He, along with Juvenal, was known for his satires. Non amo te sabidi nec possum dicere quaere, hoc tantum possum dicere non amo te. I do not love thee. And then if we turn the page here, we should have some information on, Sabidios, the name of Marshall's perhaps fictitious target. So we got to put it Sabidios in our translation. So I do not love thee, Sabidios, nor am I able to say why. This only I'm able to say, I do not love thee. Now, love could also mean like. So I don't know why I don't like you. I don't know why I don't love you, but I just don't. So I don't have a reason. If you want a reason, I can't give you one. I just know that I don't. So that one's kind of interesting. Quickly about the grammar is non amo te, I do not love thee, Sabidios, nor am I able to say why. So quaere means why, like with the word question. So this only I am able to say. So hoc means this, tantum means only. Once again, if as I did when I was learning Latin once upon a time, you got to look these words up. Only. The challenge, of course, is that Latin has less vocabulary than English, and so you have to kind of decide which one of these is going to work for the context. That makes some sense. This only I'm able to say. This is where we get the word like dictation. And then non amote means that I don't love you. So amote means I love you, I love thee. Non amote means I don't love you. Once again, you definitely want to take a look at this. This might help you with your short essay on the test. And then here they give you some other helpful information and translation. Here's another short text by Livy. This is the last one that we'll have in this chapter. And the historian Livy laments the decline of Roman morals. Populus Romanos magnus animos et pauces culpes habebat. Deo ficiis nostris cogitabamus et gloriam belli semper ladibamus. Sed nunc multum otium habemus et multi sunt avri, nec vitia nostra nec remedia tolerare possimus. The Roman people had literally great minds and few faults. So probably would say in English, probably say the Roman people had great spirit and few faults. But notice the original Latin is in the plural, but if we say the Roman people had great minds, that sounds a little bit too abstract in English, but they were spirited. English, we probably say the Roman people were patriotic and freedom-loving people, but that's not kind of how the Romans thought, so that's the problem with that translation. So the Roman people had great spirits and few faults. They were they were thinking about our duties, and they were always praising the glory of war. But now they have much leisure, and many are greedy. Neither our vices nor remedies are we able to tolerate. So we are able to tolerate neither our vices nor our remedies. Ouch. So let me put that down here for the Livy. Oops. And walk through that one a little bit more carefully. Okay. So we have the Roman people. Habebat means that is the imperfect. So had, literally were having. So the Roman people had great spirit and few faults. That's how I'm going to translate that. So the Roman people had, for habebat, great spirit, for magnus animos, and few faults. In other words, they were virtuous. We were thinking about our duties. In other words, we as Romans. So if you were cogitating or cognizant of something, cogito ergo sum. Mus means we. Bam we had in the past tense. So we were thinking about our duties, literally our offices, which means duties in Latin. So we were thinking about our duties. I think there's an N there. We were thinking about our duties, and we were always praising the glory of war. In other words, that we became soft as Romans. Weak, lazy, indolent, however you want to look at it. And we were always praising the glory of war. So we were always praising, semper laudibamos, if something's laudable, it's something praiseworthy. Most means we were always praising the glory, gloriam, there's our direct object, am, and then of war, gloriam belli, genitive means of, so the glory of war. But now we have much leisure, much luxury. But now we have much leisure. In other words, even Caesar in his De Bello Gallico talks about how civilization leads to an effeminization of the human soul. But now we have much leisure. Otio means leisure. And many are greedy, avarice. And Many are greedy. They just go shopping all the time. And many are greedy. Neither, so nake means neither nor. So neither our vices nor our remedies are we able to tolerate. So in English, we probably say we are not able to tolerate either our vices or, but nake means neither nor. So I'm going to keep it closer to the original Latin. Neither our vices nor our remedies, type here, we are able to tolerate. Again, I kept it kind of literal word order so you can follow the Latin. We're not going to publish this with Oxford University, so I'm not too worried about Google grammar and its highlighting, to be honest with you. So neither our vices, vitia nostra, nor remedies we are able to tolerate. Remember, tolerate doesn't mean like political tolerance. It can also mean to endure. There's to put up with. Bear, endure, or tolerate. You can, if you want to say bear, that would be fine too. But you get the idea. All right, that was it. So you have quite a bit of Latin here. To be honest with you, the Latin was fairly straightforward, but as I said, given the fact that that really brings all these declensions into play, and you definitely have new vocab, I can imagine this is going to take a little bit of time on your part in order to learn and to memorize and remember the Latin. Okay, as I noted, next week is a test. Not this week, but next week. So get ready for that. And again, that'll be chapters 4, 5, and 6. I'll send out an email about signing up to come to D-Rich to sit for the test. But as usual, please send me an email if you have questions about this chapter. And then next week, if you have questions about chapters 4, 5, 6, same format as the first test, vocabulary, sententia antiquae, one of the longer passages, and a short essay. Obviously, please let me know. Valete.